The projected number one pick, Fernando Mendoza, will not throw at the NFL Combine. And guess what? I don't care. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso. With the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Lauren Cox. On today's show, we're going to get you guys ready to go for the NFL Combine kicking off this week with some draft-related discussion. Fernando Mendoza not throwing at the Combine, I don't care. Who is the real wide receiver one in this draft, and what are we to make of the three big-time edge rushers? Before we dive into it, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. Lauren, we got the word. Fernando Mendoza, the projected number one pick, is not going to be throwing at the Combine. I don't really care. Do you care?
No, I mean, when was the last time the projected top quarterback threw at the Combine? It feels like it's been, because Cam Ward didn't last year, Caleb Williams did 2 years ago, and anyone who can remember more than 2 years ago is better than me. But like, usually the tip top guys, you just don't have anything to gain. You only have something to lose. Like, it's you're not really going to like sell the Raiders even more that they already wanted to take you number one. So like, yeah, I mean, we all lose out on the entertainment value of like seeing these at least the top quarterbacks in these classes sling it and show off that arm strength a little bit. But realistically, it's become less and less important in classes that are this decided already of like, yeah, we all kind of know the number one pick.
Yeah, everybody says go out there and compete. But I mean, Joe Burrow didn't do on-field workouts. Trevor Lawrence didn't do on-field workouts. And no, Lauren, I don't have that committed to memory. I made sure to check. So you're 100% right. It's been forever. And that whole, just go out there and compete. Like, that's easy for you to say when you are the person who isn't going to lose something if you get hurt or do bad or anything like that. And that's why my guy Damian Parson from Locked On NFL Draft, who we're going to hear from a lot today, agrees that he doesn't care that Mendoza isn't thrown at the Combine.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Damian Parson, lead host of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And QB1 for the 2026 NFL Draft, Fernando Mendoza says, I will not be throwing at the NFL Scouting Combine in about 2 weeks. His words is that, playing a long season makes it less of a priority, and he wants to focus on being there for his guys, Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper Jr. at their pro day. Buy or sell that this was the correct decision. I'm buying. I think this was the right decision for him. He had an extremely long season, guys, from start to finish. Week 1 all the way to the national championship game. He's checked every single box we've needed him to check. All the data points are there. Him not throwing at the Combine, you can't question whether or not he's a competitor. The young man went from Cal to Indiana and won a national championship and led them to an undefeated season and changed their entire program. Can't question if he's a competitor. He took a big hit from Caden Curry in the playing against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Can't question his competitiveness. Looking out for his players, I understand. Being able to control the environment, I understand as well. So, buy or sell that Fernando Mendoza not throwing at the Combine was a good decision. I'm buying. It was the right decision. Do what's best for you, Fernando. But for more player opinions, takes, breakdowns, and analysis, subscribe to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
We're going to hear a lot from our guys at Locked On NFL Draft, including Damian and my guy Keith Sanchez, who also does the show with them on today's show. But I'm fully on board there again, like we talked about. Now, the question is, Lauren, is there anything that could reasonably happen, barring scandal, massive injury, or anything like that, that if you were the Raiders would consider coming off of Mendoza as the number one pick?
No, I mean, the only thing that would happen is like away from the draft, right? You trade for a quarterback like Kyler Murray or Tua or whoever, like, but there's not and then you wouldn't take a quarterback number one overall at that point. But like, I don't see any sort of like on-field related thing that would change which quarterback you're going to take number one overall. It would just be whether you take a different position because you address quarterback in some other way, but it's too valuable to not just take Mendoza and say, this is clearly the best option. Whether you feel like great compared to previous quarterback classes doesn't matter. It's like this year, this is the best you can do. So take it and see where it can get you.
Yeah, all you could do is go with the options that you have available to you. And, I've seen people say that he would be 4th, 5th compared to, previous year quarterbacks. I know Todd McShay had him 5th behind the 3 that were drafted in 2024 with Williams, May, Daniels, and then had him behind Cam Ward as well. Daniel Jeremiah has him ahead of Cam Ward as a prospect, but behind the 3 from 2024. But something that I mentioned earlier, I guess it's last week at this point, the way the days bleed together. But all of the quarterbacks in the NFL right now are basically first rounders. Yeah, you have Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, but pretty much everybody was drafted in the first round. You start looking at the playoff quarterbacks and it becomes even more obvious. You only have minimal opportunities to get yourself a guy, and that's why someone who most consider QB2, Ty Simpson, might be a guy who goes in the first round, as well as our guys over at Locked On NFL Draft talked about.
He's going to climb up and he's going to rip those throws in the middle of the field, and then the accuracy, Keith, he almost like long handoffs. When he's on, he's delivering on time, on target, and precise passes. How many times we see that dagger concept where you got the deep out route from usually Jerm Bernard, you get the top taken off by Ryan Williams or that freshman number 17. He takes the safety, you get the deep in cut, and he just puts it right on the money. And it's for Jerm Bernard to go from receiver to runner. It's instantaneous. I don't have to wait for the ball. I don't got to stop my momentum. I catch it in stride and I go. This is a guy that NFL teams, they're going to look at that 9 games and say, I can absolutely work with this. Like the stuff that happened after that, it's just coaching and experience.
Well, there's also reports that Ty Simpson was pretty injured late in the season. Now, is that true? Is that false? With it being college, we can't know for sure. But I look at, the top 10. I don't think that New York or Arizona or Cleveland are going to reach and try to get Ty Simpson that early. Miami at 11, I still think that's pretty early. But as you get later in the draft, you look at, the Jets have another pick at number 16. You have the Minnesota Vikings at 18. I don't think that they would do it, but the Steelers at 21. You look at the Rams at 29. They could all be options. Do you think that Ty Simpson ends up going in the first round?
I do think he goes in the first round because teams are going to want, at a very minimum, that 5th-year option available to them to give them an extra year of cost-controlled quarterback play in case he works out. But we have kind of seen this trend in recent draft years where, if it's a super strong quarterback class at the top, teams start reaching and getting desperate because once a couple come off the board, you get this avalanche of like, now I got to make sure I get my guy. Whereas I think the draft class like this where Mendoza will go 1 and then TBD, I think you'll see a lot more willingness to be patient because there won't feel like, in the eyes of NFL evaluators at least, that there's as massive of a gap between Ty Simpson and whoever your quarterback 3 is going to be this season. Not that there's not a gap, but it's just like it's not as monumental perhaps. And then between 3 and 4, there's not as big of a gap. So all of a sudden there's not as much pressure to do it. It feels kind of like closer to last year where you might see in the mid to late 20s type of range where where Jackson Dart went to the Giants at 25 after Cam Ward went 1, and that was kind of it. Like that to me feels something similar for this year. Like there's enough to like about Simpson and enough desperate quarterback teams to say, sure, let's go for it, but not enough desperation to say, we got to get him in the top 10 to make sure we get our guy.
No, I agree 100%. His talent isn't at that level. Now, we talked about the Steelers. We talked about the Rams, and those are 2 logical options. But, of course, all the teams at the top, the Jets, the Browns, they could realistically trade back in like you're talking about like the Giants did last year. I'm with you. I think that will be the expectation is that somebody comes into the draft in the bottom 20s to try to figure that out and get Ty Simpson on board. But with that in mind, we do need to move to who the quarterbacks throw to, and that's wide receivers, because who your wide receiver 1 is in this draft could be a different answer if you ask 10 different people. It's very, very intriguing. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people try to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, packed schedules, a million podcasts. Having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease, and it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, and quick lunches. You save time and money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries for a limited time. Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive your free dessert. All right, Lauren, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL, getting you guys ready to go for the NFL Combine with a little draft conversations. We did a little mock draft on yesterday's show, hitting some prospects today. The draft is right around the corner, folks. We're getting fired up. Plus, free agency is literally in a matter of weeks. Make sure that you stay locked in with the #1 sports podcast network in the country, Locked On. And of course, make sure that you stay subscribed, get subscribed to Locked On NFL. But with that being said, wide receiver. Lauren, I will ask you this. Who is your #1 wide receiver currently in the NFL draft?
I still think it's Carnell Tate for me, even though, there's plenty of other talent in that Ohio State offense, and it's easy to kind of get easier matchups when Jeremiah Smith is on the other side, et cetera. But I just think in terms of the best, well-rounded skill set there of someone who's got size, got speed, got catchability, I mean, he just does a little bit of everything really well. And I could see others having higher ceiling, it's especially somebody like Jordyn Tyson from Arizona State potentially. But to me, Tate's the guy who's got the most complete package there that I think you can kind of use in just about any offense in any way you want.
Yeah, I think he is a very safe pick at the wide receiver position. Elite speed, big-bodied, you're right. He's got that great vertical ability. I mean, he just won so many contested catches down the field for Ohio State this year. It's hard to look at that and not say that fits in our offense. He could help pretty much anybody. Now, there are some concerns, and I will say this. I have Carnell Tate as my wide receiver 3. So I do differ a little bit, and we'll talk about why, but I'll let my guys over at Locked On NFL Draft, which if you aren't subscribed to Locked On NFL Draft, I hope today's episode will embolden you to do that because they talked about where they do want to see some improvements from Carnell Tate.
So, yes, Carnell Tate, springy athlete, ball skills, great hands. Again, just a pro's pro and how he attacks the game. If he was a little bit more fluid after the catch, I would have went with my initial comp, which was AJ Green. But AJ Green just had the wiggle. He had the elusiveness. He could put a move on you. Carnell Tate is more of a run to the void type of guy where, Makai Lemon transitions quickly. He's got the lateral cuts and things of that nature. And then he's like a running back after the catch too. Similar to Jordyn Tyson as well. Both of those guys are strong. I think that with Tate as well, I want to see him get a little stronger. I do want to see him put a little bit more on the frame.
And that is something that I think is true. He is slight. He is slender. Will he be able to win in contested situations as often and as consistently as he did in college? He's not an excellent route runner in the short or intermediate range. He's obviously more of a deep receiver. It's not that he can't do that. It's just he was so good on deep balls at Ohio State. And I will admit, I am an Ohio State Buckeye, so I've watched every game that he's had. I wonder where he ends up going. Lauren, how high would you be willing to draft Carnell Tate? Would you take him at number 4 if you were the Titans? Would you take him at 5 if you were the Giants? Are you comfortable taking him there?
Yeah, I think he's a top 10 talent for me for sure in this draft. And definitely, top 5 wouldn't be totally out of the question. I mean, I think a couple of the pass rushers that we're going to talk about coming up are also in that mix. And then, of course, quarterback with Mendoza at 1. So you start to do the math on what falls through, some tackles as well in the mix. So I think it's a top 5 talent in a draft like this. And it reminds me a little bit of, was it now 2 years ago, where you had Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors all on the top. And you talked to 10 different people. There were a lot of different orders.
Yep.
They ended up going. And for a little while there, it looked like the best of the group was Brian Thomas, who went in the 20s later. So I imagine we'll feel that kind of pressure as we get closer to the draft, who's going to go first. And then all 3 of these guys at the top end up going, not back to back to back, but in quicker succession than we might think.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think it really is a your favorite flavor kind of wide receiver draft with all of them being pretty similar talents. Well, I'll ask you this, Lauren. Who's your wide receiver 2 in this draft after Carnell Tate?
To me, I go Makai Lemon just because, I mean, I loved Jackson Smith and Jigba coming out. Not that they're the exact same player, but like, just give me the guy who can separate consistently, and he's just always going to get open. Like, I don't care that he's maybe not the true fastest guy on the field or the biggest or the strongest necessarily. It's just that like that skill of route running to be able to create separation and get open. Like, those are the guys that I love and I trust. And maybe he doesn't go quite as high because you see the ceiling isn't as good, but I wonder if people seeing how great JSN was this season all of a sudden opens their mind to, yeah, he's a slot guy, but like, you can absolutely cook with that.
Lauren is a certified lemon head, ladies and gentlemen. That is the term I'm coining here. And you aren't alone. Our guys over at Locked On NFL Draft agreed that he is the pound for pound toughest wide receiver in this draft.
Makai Lemon being my wide receiver 3, guys, it's simple to me. This is a slot receiver, a chain mover, a first down maker, a security blanket, in the right offense. I'm being honest with you. Man, I'm not going to lie. I can't. Guys, I would love him in Josh McDaniels' offense. I would love Makai Lemon with the Patriots, man. Makai Lemon in the slot, right? Kayshon Boutte, Kyle Williams, Stephon Diggs. Those guys. Makai Lemon in the right offense could be 100-catch slot receiver. But that's if the slot is the point of the offense. If he's in the offense where you got a dynamic number 1 already, it could limit his touches unless you're a team that don't run the football. So, nonetheless, pound for pound, toughest receiver in this class. And this young man does it all, brings it all, and he's just so talented.
I love Makai Lemon for all the reasons that you're saying. He may be small. He may not be the greatest athlete, but there's something about football where it's not always the fastest guy. It's not always the biggest guy. Football is more complex than that. It's not so black and white. And I think that a guy like Makai Lemon, so good after the catch, yards per route run stats are off the charts, and usually that's a good predictor. I have Makai Lemon number 2 of my wide receiver group, which if I have Carnell Tate 3 and Makai Lemon 2, then that tells you my number 1 is Jordyn Tyson. And if you have Carnell Tate 1 and Makai Lemon 2, that means your number 3 is Jordyn Tyson. And it's funny how we have them, switched right there, but that does show you how people could see these things differently. But for me, Jordyn Tyson is number 1 because he just has that superstar look to him, his ability to make big plays in big moments. It's his A trait, as our guys over at Locked On NFL Draft say.
DP, if I had to go with one thing for Jordyn Tyson as far as an A trait, I think it's his contested catch ability to make difficult catches, right? This is a young man, when you talk about body control in the air, he defines that, right? Like that's the definition of it. And then you also talk about his focus, right? Focus overall, to be able to focus on the football with defenders draped on him, just in all type of situations and come down with the football. To me, that's an A trait, right? Like I think that's something that he thrives in.
I mean, I have to agree now. We've been talking about Carnell Tate. He is better at contested catches than a Jordyn Tyson. So if that's an A trait and Tate was better, then I could see the argument there. But what sets Jordyn Tyson apart for me in this wide receiver class is his yards after catch ability and his route running. He is the best, in my opinion, pure route runner of any wide receiver in this class at all 3 levels: short, intermediate, and deep. And when you add yards after catch ability, contested catch ability, and then elite route running, he may be a slot-only guy, but they said that about Justin Jefferson, too. And I think that a guy like Jordyn Tyson compares favorably to a guy like Justin Jefferson. Not saying that he's going to be Justin Jefferson, but I just think they have similar traits. I think CeeDee Lamb is a guy who Jordyn Tyson compares to. Let me just ask you this, Lauren. Is the reason that you have Tyson number 3 related to the injuries? Because that seems to be the big hang-up for people with Tyson.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, for sure. There's also, I just think you've seen him get better over time, and that's always the nice trajectory that you want, but there's been some inconsistency in there.
True.
Running definitely got better from where he started earlier in his college career, but I don't know. I just want to see more of the whole complete package put together more often, right? Like the tools are absolutely all there, and you love it, and you can envision him being that like alpha number one wide receiver in the NFL. I just want to I want to see like the full package. And obviously in college, like you're projecting forward for all of these guys, but I just feel like I've seen a little bit more of like what Carnell Tate's going to be at the next level. And I've seen a little bit more of like what Makai Lemon, like you can see exactly how what they're doing in college is going to be what they're doing in the pros. And I think for Jordyn Tyson, there's a little bit more of like we've seen all the pieces. We just got to like fully see that true like translation to the pros, which very likely can and will happen. But how much do you trust it compared to the other guys is where you start to split the hairs.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And I think then you add in the injury being the reason that maybe we haven't seen the consistency. He had an ACL tear in 2022, basically missed all of 2023, collarbone injury at the end of 2024 that knocked him out of the playoffs, dealt with some hamstring stuff during this last season where he was in and out of the lineup. Now, I think that it's easy to say he came back from the ACL and played elite football, so I'm not that worried. A collarbone is a freak accident, so I don't think that's related to the legs. All of the best wide receivers in the NFL have dealt with some hamstring issues at some point. It's just hard not to at that position. But the totality of all those three things definitely has some people concerned. So it'll be interesting to see how these wide receivers come off the board. And you can already tell me and Lauren have our list inverted. So I'm sure there's a lot of people in the NFL that feel the same way. But the same thing is going to be the case with the edge rushers, where they all have great talent, but they all have big question marks. And we'll talk about that now. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. And if you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. If you watch the NBA or if you don't, then you know that coming out of the break, the best part of the NBA season is about to kick off. And now, not only can your picks cash, but they can also send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Lauren, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL, getting you guys ready to go for the NFL Combine, talking about some of the best positions in the NFL draft. We talked about the first-round quarterbacks. We talked about the top wide receivers, but now we need to talk about the top edge rushers. And this is another position where who you have at number one is kind of just what flavor that you like. So I will ask you this, Lauren, continuing to put you on the spot. Who is your number one edge rusher in this NFL draft?
Yeah, so certainly all three of the guys we're going to talk about here are going to be scheme dependent a little bit in terms of what kind of defense you run. So, each team is going to stack them differently. But personally, I'm a big Rueben Bain fan and have been for a long time. I totally understand undersized length questions for sure, but like he's got the quickness, the speed, the technique, and the strength. Like for a smaller guy, he has an outsized upper and lower body strength to just move offensive linemen who are bigger than him. And so I understand the Texas Tech edge rusher David Bailey. I think you could see the higher ceiling for sure in terms of having the more dynamic physical tools, but give me the guy who already has impressive enough physical tools to win with and great technique to pair with it. Like Rueben Bain, I think is a real solid plug and play, good to go. And you could even kick him around a little bit and move him up and down your line of scrimmage if you need to.
He's got positional versatility, and again, that physicality, like you talk about, is really what stands out on his tape, and our guys at Locked On NFL Draft pointed that out as well.
And I think for Rueben Bain, it's about the violent temperament that he consistently plays with, right? And I think that when you're talking about setting a tone and a culture changer, this is what you want in a football player, right? So you look at the top end of the draft and some of these teams that have bad defenses, right? Let's go as high as number 2, the New York Jets, right? Needing defensive prowess and needing to change the mentality of the defense, right? Rueben Bain is that because he brings high energy, he brings relentless effort, he brings violent temperament, he brings a motor, right? That runs hot all the time, and he wants to physically impose his will on you, right?
And I think that's something that's going to give him a leg up, even though he may have the short arms and there are concerns and this and that. The ability to not only help a defense, but help a locker room is going to matter, especially when you look at the New York Jets, who are struggling to build that culture, the Tennessee Titans, who are struggling to build that culture. Like and even the Washington Commanders, who are trying to get some more young pieces in the defense when it was led by some veterans. I think that would make a ton of sense, and I'm with you. I really like Rueben Bain. Now, my number one edge rusher kind of depends on how you see him, because my number one edge rusher is Arvell Reese from Ohio State, but there's some conversation that he might be more of an off-ball linebacker, since that's more of what he did in college. Does he count as an edge rusher? Who is he going to be? Where he's going to be? But the potential is off the charts, and that's something that our guys at Locked On NFL Draft talked about as well.
He's the type of guy they've been missing, because when you want to go to those kind of bare fronts, those 5-man defensive line fronts, and he's playing that walk-up Sam backer off the edge, and you got him up against a tight end, I'm taking Arvell Reese in one-on-one run blocking situations against most tight ends in the league. Like, I've watched him against tackles and dominate them. I think this is a highly impactful player that has a very, very high ceiling. I think if you let him mature as a pass rusher, you're looking at a double-digit sack guy who also can play stack backer and probably get you 80 to 100 tackles as well.
Now, Lauren, would you consider Arvell Reese more of an off-ball linebacker right now or an edge rusher?
Yeah, he's someone that I could you get by with him as a full-time edge rusher? Yeah, but I don't know that would be utilizing his skill set to the max.
I agree.
This is the kind of chess piece talent that I don't want to pinhole specifically, like just an edge rusher or just an off-ball linebacker. And so that's where like scheme becomes such a factor here. Like, I don't know, like, would a team like the New York Jets be able to really properly get the most out of this player? Like, yeah, he could play defensive end for them and probably be fine. But like, I could see a team like Arizona really have a lot of fun as they kind of try to continue that scheme and add some versatility there. Like, I would love it. He's not gonna be in the range, but like Jim Leonard in Buffalo would take this player and make him one of the best players in all of the NFL on defense. Like, that, some of these masterminds on these more like versatile hybrid schemes can take a player like this, and in some base downs they can play some off-ball linebacker because you trust him walking up to the line of scrimmage. Then in pass rushing downs you can get an extra DB on the field and put him at edge rusher. And I mean, there's just so many things you can do, but it's not going to be every team's cup of tea, and so it's really hard to predict where you draft him. And that's why I like personally have him a little bit lower on my board. I'm thinking of like edge rusher types because he's kind of his own category here.
No, that makes a ton of sense. He's a football player more than anything, and that could be something that's brilliant and makes him a special player, but it also could be something that scares some teams away if they don't feel confident that they can use him. Now, I have to be honest, Lauren, he's my number one player in the entire draft. I love Arvell Reese. Again, I was a little lower on Carnell Tate, so don't be in here telling me I got a Buckeye bias or anything like that, like some people like to do. Like, I'm lower on Tate and Downs than the rest of the world, and I'm higher on Arvell Reese. I'm willing to take a chance, and personally, my Tennessee Titans at number 4, I'm like, Robert Saleh could absolutely make this work with a Sam linebacker position in his 4-3 defense. Like, we can have him play off-ball linebacker, be on the line of scrimmage on early downs, then mug the A-gaps and run these twists and stunts up front with the linebacker position as he develops as a pass rusher. I love Arvell Reese, but you're right. He's got to go to the right spot, and I could just see, sorry, Jets fans, I could just see Arvell Reese going to the Jets and it just not working out. But guys like Frankie Louvu and Jelani Tavai and Jalen Walker for the Falcons last year, and of course Abdul Carter and Micah Parsons as of late, who were more off-ball linebackers but have done versatile things, I think that might give Arvell Reese a better chance of going higher in the draft, because sometimes these teams just need examples of how things work. But that leaves David Bailey as the other guy that is the big-time defensive prospect, and David Bailey looks like he's ready to contribute right away, which might rocket him up the boards, according to our guys over at Locked On NFL Draft.
And then that opens up to me, which I think is one of his next best traits, is his just overall natural ability to rush the passer. Like, he has different moves. Like, he can go speed to power with the long arm. He gets you to dip and bend around the edge, but then he also has a killer inside spin counter.
Yeah,
he sets that up.
Yep.
He sets that up. So, I mean, it goes with what you started with. That first step quickness allows him space to spin back inside. Because how many times we watch film, especially in the NFL, and you got a guard that knows that you like to spin, so he keeps his eyes on you and like that peripheral vision, like in the corner of his eye, he's waiting for you to spin. How many times we seen those guards retrace over and then rock a guy? Like, okay, yeah, you think you got my tackle beat, you spin back inside, meet my shoulder, right? And like now you're on the ground looking up at the heavens and be like, man, how did I get here? Right? I think that's one of those things where his speed pulls those tackles out there on that island. And then once you get to that place and you're in no man's land, he's got the speed, he's got the space to spin back inside.
Now, if you want to count Arvell Reese as an edge, I have David Bailey as my edge 3, and I'm not as high on David Bailey as the rest of the draft world seems to be. He does have great moves, great get off the line of scrimmage, incredible inside counter spin move like our guys were talking about there, but he's thin in his lower half, and I don't know if he can put on more mass. He's not a very good run defender. I don't know if he's going to be a 3-down player at the NFL level, and I don't think he has very good dip and bend. I think he lacks ankle flexion. He's kind of stiff and rigid in the lower body, and I don't know if that speed will work as consistently at the NFL level. So I like David Bailey. He should be a top 10 pick, but I have some concerns about him that make him my number 3 edge, or number 2 if you want to take Arvell Reese out of the convo.
Yeah, he fits the mold of like this guy that draft Twitter falls in love with, and a couple of NFL teams will fall in love with too, right? You just that kind of speed and traits with the proven production off of the edge.
Yes.
I think he led the country in sacks, just his conference.
14 and a half sacks.
Yeah, right. I mean, so like when you have like rare physical tools and the production to match it, like that's the sweet spot where like it's not like last year where you had Shamar Stewart where, you know, you had all the tools but none of the production, or you had you guys had the production but not the tools. Like when you compare those are the guys that end in the top that land in the top 10, even if I share a lot of your concerns about, you know, like strength and power and tenacity in that regard off the edge. Like the speed is great, but like it doesn't always feel like there's enough of that sort of like pure like power behind it that something like Rueben Bain, for comparison, like has, even though it maybe doesn't have quite the same length to go with it.
Yeah, and Rueben Bain's 280 pounds. I think David Bailey was listed at like 245, 250. I think he plays closer to like 235, in my opinion, a little bit smaller. And in my opinion, you want to talk about just pure flexibility and dip. I think that Rueben Bain at 280, 270 pounds has more dip and more bend than a guy like David Bailey. So I am higher on Rueben Bain. I think both are going to end up going top 10. David Bailey, with a strong showing at the Combine, which he's likely to put on this week, he might even go top 2. You know, he might go to the Jets. I've seen that mocked quite a bit. So that could be a possibility. But the point is, through all these conversations, it really is kind of a flavor of the week. What do teams want? What do they think is going to fit? Because all these players are pretty good players, and I think they can help football teams quite a bit. So we're going to see how they all perform at the Combine, but that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, Lauren Cox, as we tell you every episode. Thanks for tuning in, and stay safe out there.